Welcome to Chemical Safety at Work, the podcast that simplifies dangerous goods storage and safety so you can keep your workplace compliant and your team protected.
Today we're talking about a serious issue, flammable liquid fires. These incidents can be catastrophic, causing injuries, fatalities, and major damage to businesses, communities, and the environment.
That's right, Pat. We're going to break down 5 real-world incidents where chemical fires and explosions occurred. And more importantly, share 5 ways you can reduce risk in your own workplace.
So let's start with a story about a worker who was spraying a flammable paint primer under a gas water heater. Unfortunately, they didn't turn off the pilot light first. The flame ignited the paint, causing a flashback, and the worker was hospitalised with serious burns.
A completely avoidable situation. The key takeaway here is to develop clear work procedures for handling and storing flammable liquids, including pre-operational checks for all tasks that involve the use of flammable liquids. Before using these chemicals, workers should always clear the area of ignition sources, shut down gas and electrical appliances, ensure proper ventilation, and wear the correct PPE. The next one is about preventative maintenance. Pat, can you tell us about the incident involving a boiler and a fuel leak?
Yeah, sure. So this one was particularly dangerous. The worker was adjusting fuel flow between 2 strainers when pressurised oil leaked from a boiler. The oil sprayed across the room, ignited, and caused second-degree burns. Another worker who was trapped at height had to be rescued by fire services.
That's terrifying. And the worst part, the equipment regularly leaked oil, meaning this accident was preventable.
Yeah, exactly. Businesses need to have routine maintenance and inspections in place. Some key areas to check include air vents and ducts to prevent dust ignition, lubrication to avoid heat and sparks, spill sumps or bunds to stop flammable waste from accumulating, and electrical connections to eliminate sparks and discharge.
Next, we have a case where a diesel mechanic was cleaning a workbench with alcohol. They left the container open, and when a torch fell and sparked, it ignited the vapours. The worker suffered burns and spent 12 days in hospital.
That worker had not received any chemical safety training. Training workers on chemical hazards is essential. They need to understand what causes a chemical to ignite, the fire and explosion risks of the chemicals they use, proper storage and handling, and housekeeping procedures like keeping the lids on. This one was heartbreaking. A worker was transferring toluene in an enclosed mixing room right next to an almost empty drum of methyl isobutyl ketone. An ignition occurred, triggering a flashback explosion. The worker suffered burns to 90% of their body and tragically passed away 11 days later.
A devastating loss, and one that could have been avoided with proper chemical segregation. Every workplace should conduct risk assessments for all highly flammable liquids, follow Australian standards for segregating dangerous goods, store high-risk flammables in dedicated flammable liquids cabinets, and remove empty chemical drums promptly.
Finally, let's talk about flammable liquids cabinets. A worker was welding when a spark flew into an open jerry can of fuel. The vapours ignited instantly, leading to serious burns.
That's why chemical containers should never be left open. If they're not in use, they must be stored in a compliant Class 3 flammable liquids cabinet. These cabinets contain vapours, spills and leaks, reduce fire risks, keep hazardous substances properly contained.
How and where your flammable liquids must be stored, the required separation distances from protected places, and the maximum quantities that can be stored in minor storage are all determined by the packing group of your flammable liquids, right, Mel?
That's right.
Can you tell us more about what exactly packing groups are?
Yeah, sure. So packing groups are hazard groups applied to dangerous goods, as assigned in the Australian Dangerous Goods Code, the ADG code. Flammable liquids may be assigned one of 3 packing groups. The packing groups are listed in Roman numerals from most to least dangerous on a scale of 1 to 3. The packing groups for flammable liquids are Packing Group 1, PG1, high danger. Packing Group 2, PG2, medium danger. Packing Group 3, PG3, low danger. We'll go into packing groups in more depth in another episode very soon.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. So that wraps up today's episode. And to recap, the 5 ways to avoid fires and explosions when working with flammable liquids that we discussed today are conduct pre-operational checks, carry out preventative maintenance, train workers on chemical hazards, segregate dangerous goods properly, and store chemicals in a compliant flammable liquids cabinet.
Thanks, Pat. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, send us a message.
Thanks again for tuning in to Chemical Safety at Work. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next time.